guys, what is up? AwesomeTheSauce here. Hope you guys are having a great day. Today, we're going to be talking about some breaking news about the Gambit spells in Wizard101. If you've been living under a complete-ass rock, Gambit spells, basically, every school has 3 of them. You have basically a base damage, and then it does double damage if you meet a condition. For example, Doom Oni. If you have 4 shields on yourself, it's 1,000 drain instead of a 500 drain. Some of these conditionals are easier to meet than others. Some of these Gambits are much easier to set up. So as a result, we have basically a teaser about how they're going to rebalance them from already in my chat, our chat, y'all. This man's saying, right? Basically, they're going to be rebalancing the Gambits based on how easy it is to set them up. Now, at face value, this actual rationale, in my opinion, makes a lot of sense. But a lot of people have been going nuts because they actually teased what one of these changes would look like, and something's a little amiss. So basically, I thought I'd make a video talking about all of the angles about this one, because I think this is going to really change up the game, especially at max PP, but I feel like at all levels. So we know that they're going to be changing the pip cost on some of these Gambits based on how easy they are to set up to balance the game. So what would one of these changes look like, right? One of the changes was actually teased. This is what the new Doom Oni would look like. And already to me, right, there's like a huge red flag here. It's the fact that it's just a better drain, and they didn't really address the problem to begin with. I think the underlying issue that they're trying to solve is shield Gambits like Doom Oni, like Mythjin, and like Ice Scion are very easy to set up. And I would say the main culprit are these Ellie shields and Spirit shields. There's 0 pips, meaning you can do it, defend yourself, create free tempo, and basically every time you do one of these, you set up 3/4 of the condition you need to meet to do a Doom Oni. So like against like a Storm on my Death, for example, right? Very often what I will do is I will Ellie shield twice right away, and I'm already ready to do 1,000 damage drain. So basically, I guess, to prevent the ease at which you can use Doom Oni, they're changing the pip cost to 9, but making the base damage 760. Now, there's a few issues there. One, I actually think the damage just seems too high. If you divide 500 by 7, I believe you get, I don't know, like 71, 72-ish. So a 9 pip spell should be doing 71, 72-ish times 2 plus 500. We literally have a 9 pip drain that's a Gambit, and it does 675. So why is this new Doom Oni doing 760? And it's also easier to set up than Jin. It seems to me that what they're doing is not only are they, like, you know, reevaluating how many pips these Gambits are, they're actually making them do the same damage per pip as any other spell in the school. If y'all didn't know, right, basically the base form of Doom Oni for 7 pips is actually weak for a 7 pip spell. And the idea is you make up for it because when you set up the Gambit, it does double damage. So who cares if the base form is weaker? You're still getting a double damage condition. Now, it seems like even the base version is actually balanced for the 9 pips of damage that a normal spell would do. It's doing about as much as a Vaughn would do. In fact, it does a little bit more because there's no infection. And I think that approach is really flawed, mainly because a Gambit is different than a regular spell. The whole shtick is that you go for the condition. If I'm holding on to a Doom Oni in my hand, I'm playing around shields, and I'm weak against schools that are good against shields. I think balancing it to the exact number of pips it should normally do destroys the whole point of a Gambit. So I think that already is super flawed. And the other thing is, I don't really see how a shield-based Gambit, like, you know, raising the pip cost of it, I'm not really sure how it solves the problem for Doom Oni specifically. Now, instead of a 500 times 2, you have a 760 damage times 2, and all you have to do is shield an extra time. I'm literally going to throw on an extra Ellie shield or an extra Spirit shield, or, you know, if I really want to get creative, I can make my 6 pip Grim Reader into a 4 pip Grim Reader, and it's barely any trade-off for the same combo. I can still Grim Reader into an Oni for the same number of pips, and I can still just shield into a better Doom Oni than before. If they were trying to nerf the ability to use shield-based Gambits easily, that doesn't feel like what this update is. So in my opinion, I think it's a bad direction. I'm just gonna say that. I think Doom Oni's already extremely stupid in practice, and I think it's, intentionally or not, they're making it better. I think at the very least, they should make it the same value as the 9 pip Gambit we already have that's a drain. I think it should be 675. I think making it 760, I don't think that makes any sense. What's the point of any of your other non-Gambit spells? This also leaves a question of whether Mythjin will become 11 pips, which means Myth will have an 11 pip Jin and an 11 pip Scion, which that's a little crazy. Although I will say an 11 pip Jin would be a pretty big nerf to the availability of Mythjin, because I feel like at that point, it is a lot of rounds, right? So maybe that will work. And as Ice Scion, instead of 11 pips, is going to be 13 pips, meaning you basically need all your pips to do an Ice Scion, which kind of destroys the whole point of comboing anything into it, so I'm not sure about that either. We'll see what they decide. What we do know is that if these spells do change, they're going to be accompanied by other changes that I do think the game needs. The same logic that they're using for raising the pip cost of shield-based gambits is probably going to be applied to overtime gambits. The comment that was in my chat from Artie the Dev basically said how Scion is probably going to be 9 pips. So we'll see in test run this week if that's true. That means that the damage actually, that 1100 damage, is going to go down, but you're still gonna have a double damage Scion at 9 pips if you have 2 overtimes on your opponent. If that was in live realm right now, that would already make a meltdown or a backfire combo way more attainable. Beyond that, there are plenty of protected overtimes and spells like the new Fire Off that actually set this up very naturally, meaning that would be a really good thing. I don't think that Scion is that hard to set up, but I do think that 11 pips is really steep for an overtime school using an overtime gambit. I don't know if y'all agree or not. What do you guys think about that? Do you guys think that it's too much? Do you guys think a 9 pip Scion, that basically I would assume, right, a 9 pip Scion, more or less, it would look like a Jhin, which is the other 9 pip conditional. It'd probably do around 1800 damage base if you have 2 overtimes on your opponent. If they're using the logic that they did it with Dumoni, might actually do more than 1800 base, maybe closer to 2000. So we'll see. I mean, their goal was to buff up Fire this update. This might be the biggest buff Fire's gotten like ever. Maybe it's too much, so we'll see. I think for me personally, the most interesting part of this update will be what they do with overtime heal gambits. That's something that we haven't talked about, right? I feel like those are also extremely hard to set up, and there's a little bit of techiness, right? So basically, in the most recent overtime update that they did, they basically made it so that instead of 3 5-round heals or 3 5-round overtimes when you use something like Oni's Forge or Meltdown, instead of that, it's 1 5-round heal, 1 4-round heal, and 1 3-round heal. So let's say that I used Oni's Forge on someone with 3 shields, right? I would have 1 5-round, 1 4-round, and 1 3-round overtime heal. And the condition for Jhin is that I have 2 overtime heals on me. What that really means though, because of the way healing works, is that you have only a 3-round window to use this 9 pip spell after you use Oni's Forge. And why is that, right? So let's say that you use an Oni's Forge, right? By the third round, one of your overtime heals is already done. And let's say that you don't hit on the 3rd round. Let's say you do this Jhin 4 rounds on the 4th round of this Oni's Forge acting. By then, the 4-round heal expires. So it's actually a little bit worse than like an overtime like Meltdown, because the Meltdown will stay on your opponent for the 4th round before you hit. Basically, there's a fancy way of saying you have 1 round less of a window after setting up a gambit to use an overtime heal gambit. Meaning, whatever they do for overtime, like overtime base gambits like Scion, overtime heal base gambits should get a better treatment in my opinion. Either that or spells that set up a heal overtime need a 1 round added on to them, because basically when you're casting a spell, you're at a disadvantage because the heal's on you and it goes out before you get to do the spell. It's like an order thing that really messes with your ability to use stuff like this. And here's the thing, I think like Thundering Jhin is extremely powerful, but honestly, if you go against someone that knows what they're doing, you actually will never get, even if you Shrike, you will never get an open Jhin. What will end up happening, right? You Oni's Forge, they shield. Let's say that you Shrike, they will shield again. Let's say that you do a hit and buff, right? Then they will either Dispel or Beguile when you're in Shrike. And then by the time you've taken off the Dispel, the window of opportunity has already passed. You've lost 3 rounds between the Shrike, the Shield Break, and taking off the Dispel. So basically, this is very hard to set up whatsoever. It's almost useless if you're going against a good player. Now, they are getting rid of Beguile TCs, which is really a nice thing, so that, you know, at least that's one less way you can basically ruin the setup. But with low HP, even a Dispel on a Storm, it basically ruins the setup entirely. You're basically forced to do this through a shield. And I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, but I don't think that should always be the way you use a spell like this, just because this is way worse than other Gambit setups. So what I hope is that in considering these specific spells that put heal overtimes on yourself, I hope they gain a round or two so that you have a window of opportunity. I don't think messing with the pip cost of this solves the issue that's currently occurring in PvP. We'll have to see what this means for spells like Life Scion, y'all. We're gonna have to see what this means for weakness-based gambits and blade-based gambits. I have no idea what they're gonna do with this. Even in my head, I don't know. But definitely the Dumoni change, the Fire Scion change, these are gonna be big things that are gonna be shaking up the game. And I really hope that they fix a lot of the things with test runs so we really get to test this out this week. Let me know what you guys think of this change. I think it's something somewhat controversial, so let me know y'all's opinions in the comments. I'll be reading every comment that I see. As always, drop a like if you enjoyed, leave a sub if you're new, and if somebody hasn't told you you're awesome today, they doing something. I'll see y'all soon. Stay awesome, and yeah, y'all.